If you're struggling with women, it's probably not because you don't have enough game. It's probably not because you don't know enough tactics. It's probably not because you don't look the best. If you're struggling with women, it's probably due to the fact that you do not like women. I'm not talking about that means you're homosexual. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you just don't like them. I had a guy ask me a question recently. He was a guy who was like getting rejected a lot. He was getting rejected a whole bunch, right? And he was saying that it was because he's short. He said that women have actually told him like that they don't want to deal with him because he's short, right? And I asked him, I was like, yo, so how tall are you? And he was like, I'm 5'8 3/4. I'm like, bro, that's not short. You're like damn near average height. I'm 5'9". You're technically 5'9". So how am I able to have success with the opposite sex, but you aren't? And it kind of stumped him. He didn't realize what was going on. I had to tell him, like, listen, women, when they're rejecting you, right, could be for a multitude of different reasons. I asked him, has he ever seen the show Pop the Balloon, right? You know that show where, so a contestant comes in, everybody has the balloon, and if a woman wants to reject the man, she just pops her balloon. And the host of that show typically asks women, like, why did you pop? And a lot of times the women will give some sort of nonsense answer, like, oh, I didn't like his shoes, or he's not tall enough for me, yada, yada, yada. And I had to explain to this guy that when women are rejecting you, when they're rejecting you, it's often because of how you made them feel. They either feel attraction or they don't, right? And if you ask them why they rejected you, a lot of women will just latch on to the most obvious reasons why they would say no, right? And for him, that's his height. It doesn't mean that he was rejected for his height. It means that his height was the excuse given as to why they didn't want to deal with him, right? Because I can guarantee you, any woman out there has probably dated a man his height or shorter. So if they have done that in the past, why are they not doing it now? What are they really rejecting? So I began to ask him more questions. I'm like, okay, so what's your situation like? Like, what's your experience been like? And the subtext of all of his answers when he was talking about dating was he had a lot of resentment. He didn't like women. He didn't like women because of how women have made him feel, right? He had a lot of darkness within him about women, right? And I told him, I said, that's what they're rejecting. They're rejecting that. They're rejecting that resentment that you have. Because you have to understand, women are quite perceptive. It doesn't mean they're all knowing. It doesn't mean they don't get fooled, right? But they do know when something is a bit off. They're wired as such, right? They're wired to kind of pick up on that because they're the weaker sex. So they have to be a bit more observant. They have to be able to notice a threat, notice danger. And that resentment that you have, that disdain for the opposite sex, registers as danger. It registers as this person is unsafe. Therefore, I'm not going to open myself up to even potentially be attracted to him. So I told this guy, that's what you have to solve for. You have to solve for not liking women, because guys who are really good with women are in two camps. Either they are so technically advanced that they can have a disdain for women or have like an extremely misogynistic view and still win with women anyway. Or they really like women. The greatest seducers of the past, of history, the Casanovas, right? Really like women, bro. They really enjoyed women. They really enjoyed the feminine presence. It wasn't just about sleeping with them, although that was a big part. They definitely were cracking a lot of joints historically. But it wasn't just that. Like someone like Casanova enjoyed spending time with women. Read his autobiography. He enjoyed the opposite sex. So you have to get to a place where you enjoy the opposite sex. Because if you do not, you're going to have to over-index on a profound technical understanding in order to actually start winning. And you don't want to do that, right? You're not trying to become like a master of game in order to compensate for that dark energy within you. Because what I had to tell him was, what's in you has to come out, right? What's in you has to be expressed, okay? So when you have this hatred is probably a strong word, but this deep resentment for women, it's going to leak out. It's going to leak out in your tonality. It's going to leak out in your body language. It's going to leak out in your micro expressions. It's going to leak out in your energy and behavior. They're going to notice it, and then they're not going to be interested. So we have to solve that problem. The question is, how do we solve that problem? Here's the answer. First thing you want to do is you want to take a break. You want to take a break from dating, right? Because if you keep going out there and approaching women and trying to deal with women, and you're going to, and you keep getting rejected, that's just going to feed that resentment. It's going to grow bigger. It's going to be a harder problem to solve. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take a step back. Sometimes to go forward, you got to take a step back and recalibrate, right? Get yourself together. So you take a step back. You stop trying to win the romance game, okay? When you take a step back, you want to start working on yourself, right? There's a couple of things you want to work on. The first thing is you have to release shame. You have to admit that you've been hurt by women. And you have to let go of pride and actually admit that, because that's what's going on. That resentment is really covering up powerlessness. You feel like you lack agency in this domain in your life, okay? And you want to admit that you are hurt so that you can release that shame. Releasing that shame is getting rid of some of that dark energy, because shame is one of the worst things you can walk around with, because it's so off-putting to people in general, not just women, right? You don't want to have a lot of shame inside of you. So you want to begin the process of releasing that. And you release that by admitting the truth, because shame likes to hide in the dark. It likes to remain unacknowledged. That's why in the Catholic faith, you start to confess to a priest. The act of confession helps to release the shame, okay? So you want to treat yourself like you're your own priest and confess, I have been hurt by women, okay? That's the first step. Second step is you want to detach your self-worth and your value from the opposite sex. Because the reason why this is hurting you so much is because you're looking at how women engage you as a representation of your value. So you feel like you don't have a lot of value, because a lot of men measure their value by how successful they are with women. So you have to get that value from within. You have to start validating yourself internally. You have to start speaking life over your life, right? So start getting into your hobby. Start working on, becoming more disciplined. Start doing things that make you proud of yourself. Accomplishing goals, making you proud of yourself. That will help you start to internally validate yourself instead of unconsciously seeking external validation. So third thing you want to do, start making and cultivating more platonic relationships with women, right? Because we have to get you to a place where you start actually liking women. Right now, you're viewing women as a caricature, right? You have to start viewing women as individuals and understanding that there are high quality women out there and there are low quality women out there. So you have to intentionally start meeting higher quality women. Spend time with women maybe in your family, friends, cousins, right? Just start getting more positive reference experiences. That's what you want. You want positive reference experiences with women. The easiest way to obtain that is to just start platonically. You don't have to stay there, but that is a way that you can start getting those positive reference experiences, so you can start rewiring your brain to look at women differently, okay? Once you get to that place where you're not harboring that resentment, where you don't have that darkness inside of you that is quite literally repelling women, you can go back out there and start approaching. You can start trying to be romantic again. And here's what's going to happen. You may still get rejected, but the rejection, because you're not seeking external validation, isn't going to impact you as much. So it's not going to create that resentment again. But also, because you change your orientation, you change your internal frame, you're no longer expressing that dark energy, you're going to see women respond positively to you, right? You're going to start getting more dates. You're going to start getting more numbers. And then you're going to just spiral upwards, right? You're going to finally get the lifestyle that you want, but you're not going to obtain that until you release the darkness inside, okay? Until you release the darkness inside, get rid of that resentment, you are not going to obtain the result that you seek. So if any of you out there are dealing with this, if any of you out there are guys who haven't had success with women, and it's could you go in one or two directions? You either keep trying to approach get darker and darker and darker, or in order to take your power back, you cope. You say, who needs them? You start creating the He-Man Woman Haters Club, right? It was like, I don't like these bitches. Who needs them? Huh? They add no value to your life. You become that 40-year-old red pillar screaming into a microphone, right? And I don't want that for you. I doubt that you want that for yourself. Okay? So do what I suggest. Take a break. Take a step back. Work on yourself. Get more positive associations. And then get back out there. And if any of you need help with that, I coach men on how to do this. I coach men on how to start winning at the game of romance, whether you want to just start attracting more women or get into a relationship, right? So if you need help with that, you can find the link in the description below. We can schedule a call, see if we're a good fit for coaching. And if so, I can help you on your journey to finally solve that problem. Till next time, guys.